Welcome back to the 7th grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about being grown, what it means to be grown, what it takes for you to grow and be a mature adult. My father died before my mother died. My father died in my 20s. So when my father died, it was something that changed my life in ways, but when my father died, my mom was still around for me to go and talk to her, so I still had one parent. But my relationship with my dad was more like a sensei and a student. It wasn't a lovey-dovey relationship. So I got the wisdom from my father, and I got the love from my mother. I grew up in a yin-yang household. And when my dad passed away, it caused me to reflect on mortality. But it wasn't the first time that I thought about that because I had lost friends in junior high school. I lost friends in high school. And death has been my greatest teacher. It teaches me to appreciate life more and work to improve the quality of my life and not to take things for granted. When my mother died, that was the end of giving a fuck completely. Through many times in my life, I said I don't give a fuck. But when you lose your mama, all fucks go out of the tank. The giving a fuck tank is empty. 0 fucks, no more. They're gone. Because that was, for me, the end of unconditional love. And because of that, when I lost that unconditional love, and I don't have children, I didn't become a cold person. I just became somebody that was more clear on what really mattered. And people's opinion mattered even less to me at that point. But I'm bringing all this up to say that it was the crystallization of maturity with the passing of my mother. I'm not telling you that I was immature before, but I had completely crossed through all the gates of adulthood. Because as you grow as a young person, you go through trials, these trials of maturity. And there's different things. There's sexual maturity, there's intellectual maturity, there's emotional maturity, social maturity. And when she was gone, when she passed, that was it. I was alone. I had friends that cared about me. I still had my siblings and all that stuff. But when my mama was gone, that was the link to the person. The door that brought me to earth closed. The person that brought me to earth was gone.
When your mother passed, my childhood was completely dead. Like I still love GH. I still love all these different. But your mom was my reminder of childhood. Walking in your house, smelling her cooking, always sent me back to a different place.
You know, it's crazy. You even after I left Omaha, you would still go by and check on my mom, and I appreciate that.
100. Yeah. That's not even a thing. That's just us. But like literally, her accent, the way she said stuff, it always sent me back to it could be 3rd grade. She'd be making enchiladas, or your mom would be, like I said, I love she made those apple muffins. The stuff she did. And so when she passed, I was devastated, but of course I never talk about it because you would be more devastated, and I wasn't trying to compare my devastation with yours, but it literally, my tie to my childhood was like, fuck it, you got to be grown. Duct tape, you're absolutely grown now. You are a fucking adult. You dealt.
That's crazy.
You dealt with everything.
And that's crazy because, you and I are brothers from different mothers. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't share the same parents, but we're brothers, man. Like, no doubt. And
I disagree. I think we do share the same parents. It's just the problem is we didn't come from the same parents.
There you go. You're right. My bad, bro. You're right. You're right.
Yeah. I shared your mom and dad.
Yeah, you're right. Because when my dad passed away, at the funeral, I saw how much it affected you, and that told me everything I needed to see right there. Like everything I needed to know, I saw. I was like, yep.
See, the reason we're doing this podcast, our parents made us grown. They raised us to be adults. Now, and we kind of hint at this, and that's why it was necessary to do this episode, is the fact that people don't want to be grown. People don't want responsibility anymore. They don't want to be held accountable for their actions. Hell, I go through it in my personal life, sometimes with my wife and kids. No, everybody wants to leave a little twinge where that wasn't my fault or you caused this to happen. When you dealt with Roscoe's dad, everything is not everything is your fault. You are responsible for the outcome.
Listen, there was no babying. He didn't smooth shit over. He just,
why'd you do it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He stabbed you with a Zen sword when he talked to you.
Yeah. See, and I never felt that. He was always nice to me. That's the crazy part. Like when I recall like conversations I had with your dad about biblical stuff or whatever, and you were always like clinging to my every word. Like he didn't do it. I'm like, dude, trust me. I never saw him scared. I was never scared of him. You know what I'm saying? I just looked up to him like, hey, like he'd been through some shit, you know. And the whole thing is, you were expected to be grown. Like I remember you like, hey, Ren, I was paying rent when I was a kid. Hey, Ren, I had my own paper. You would always tell me other stuff that your dad would do, and people were like, you know, people nowadays will call that child abuse, and I'm like, no, it's called rearing. Nobody wants to be adults anymore. And here's another thing that with social media and a lot of the bullshit we got going on, I gotta say it correctly. Everybody has a sob story. You know, like when I actually tell my kids, like my younger kids, what I really went through, or you know, what I go through with grandma, or whatever, they're like, yeah, I'm like, no, stop that feeling sorry for people. And he's missing a leg. Like, no, it's not about feeling sorry. It's about I have compassion, but that motherfucker still has a responsibility to take care of him or herself. And that's what being grown is about. How many people, you know, even in our personal life, they've suffered from adulthood schizophrenia. What that is, you know, we all know what schizophrenia is, but there are some people who become adults at 18 and 19 and can't cope with having to make decisions and pay bills and take care of their own well-being. It actually makes them crazy, or something triggers that, you know. And that, I'm not saying it's not real. That's not where I'm going with it. What I'm saying is that's actually a thing. I've been paying bills almost as long as I can remember. You know, like you had a bill, I had a bill. Like whether it was a phone bill, like I remember you ordering Soldier of Fortune magazine.
Yeah.
And you wanted to be a mercenary when we were like 11.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I remember when the 18 came out. And you were like, see, we could do this. I'm like,
dude,
okay,
yeah, that's a whole nother thing right there.
But what I'm saying is that we always thought that whatever we decided to do as adults, it was ours. You know.
Yes.
Snitch. See, that's why we talk about snitching, and people don't understand when I'm talking about snitching. When I say snitching, when we were younger, if you decided to be a criminal, if you decided in third or fourth grade, you know, Froggy, rest in peace, we knew he was going to sell drugs. If you decided to be a criminal, you also decided to go to jail. Like it's like, you know what? I'm doing this. This is how I make my money. This is my career choice. And if I get arrested doing my career, I ain't worried about nobody else. I'm going to do my time, get out, and just continue doing it again. Or we knew about investing money even back then. I remember having stock and stuff way back then. Like you knew, like, okay, if I did something to go to jail, I need to invest $15,000 in the stock market. Just take my ass to jail.
But you know what it was though? We understood. We understood
the consequences of your actions.
The consequences of your actions. Well spoken. So because of that, we acted accordingly. But not only because of that, it's because we had so many examples in our neighborhood, in our lives, the people that were going through these trials and dealing with the result of their choices. We saw firsthand. See, the thing is, we had the benefit of learning from people's mistakes. And that is one thing I've actually been very fortunate to be aware of my entire life, and I'm sure you as well, is that I've seen people fuck up and do shit wrong all the time. And I'm always paying attention. I'm watching the show the entire time, dude. Like, watching everything up. I'm like, not doing that. I hear about motherfuckers getting burnt. I'm like, niggas, put that fucking condom on. Like, your ass gonna get caught up.
I think it's funny. When me and you, we always talk about movies and whatever, or working on our own scripts. I see life in my mind like a movie. I
like
watch
a movie.
Yeah, and when you're watching somebody, I'm on that channel. Some of the niggas we watched, it was after Discovery Channel. I'm like, oh, this is some reality shit. They gonna bust their ass. Or
Mhm.
you're like, oh my god, I can't believe a nigga climbed up that tree like that. And so but I watch it intently with that in mind, as if I'm watching a TV show. Like, okay, is this nigga gonna fall, bust his ass? Is he gonna make it? Is he gonna make this jump on his bike coming down his hill doing 45 miles an hour?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, you don't have the luxury of 35 minutes to figure stuff out in life. But sometimes, that's like
No,
you have to look
it's
at
a
it
mini
like,
series. It's a
yeah,
continuous mini
yeah.
series. It's The Simpsons. That shit just keeps going on and on.
Look, it shit ties together. You have consequences,
You got
and
alternate
like
storylines, got backstories, all kind of shit.
I think another thing that blew my mind, when it comes to jealousy and relationships, and again, we had said this on an older podcast. I never understood. I understand it now. It took me a very long time to understand that somebody can be born with more than you and still be jealous of you, or somebody can have more
Ooh.
than you. They can be married. They can have good parents. They can have all these different things, and that person is still jealous of you. And they're like, well, they're like, hey, Roscoe, you did this. Hey, duct tape, you doing that? I'm like, you just answered your own question. I'm doing. I walked in
Doers
and saw
and
and did it,
watchers.
and it's really frustrating because, like I said, this person will have marriage, kids. This person will have all these different things, all these accolades, and they still are jealous of yours, like to the point where they'll sabotage your shit. Like that's another thing I didn't understand that in the corporate world, there's somebody who I was cool with. I kicked it with. My best friend is a female. Her name is, and me and her have been tight for years. We got hired around the similar time, been at the job 20-something years. And so she had a roommate who worked in the same department as us. Now this woman is moving up. And so she's kicking dirt on my name like you wouldn't believe to a vice president. And we wasn't a vice president yet. But she doesn't know that me and this vice president are friends. There was a girl that went to high school with you, and she introduced me to this guy. Well, this guy shot up the corporate ladder at my business. In fact, we're still friends to this day. And he calls me one day and goes, Red, you ain't gonna believe this, but somebody's kicking dirt on your name. And I shrug him off because I'm used to people. At the time, I was a manager, corporate America, and he goes, duct tape is such and such. It blew my mind. Like, for real? I'm like, this fat bitch trying to hook me up with her daughter.
Betrayal.
Very rarely, this goes back to a conversation we had privately last night. Very rarely have I been betrayed. Most of the people I kick it with, I've known for years. But it was crazy because I'm like, dude, this person is not a successful person. They're hardworking. And there's a lot of stuff I could say about this person.
But would you consider loose lips betrayal though?
I consider it betrayal because I wouldn't have done it to her. That I would have that if he had posed a question to me, I always encourage people to be successful. So I learned this. This is my philosophy. If you're making the money you want to make and you fucking the bitch you want to fuck, you ain't got no reason to fuck with me. And so whenever a chance for a job comes along, like I have a half sister that works with me. I got her hired. I meet my half sister. That's a messed up story. So I meet my half sister, and I'm like, a short time later, I get her hired at my company. Now she's past me. She's making way more than me, just for the record. But I'm proud of that. I'm like, look, this lets me know that if you're just like me. If you had different things in your life, you probably would have went farther. Sometimes we talk about this racial divide, and I'm like, listen, whatever. It's my life, but give me a chance, I will take that ball for a touchdown. You understand? If you give me a chance, I'm blowing it out the water.
Okay. So the thing about the trials of adulthood, failure is included in those.
It's lesson.
And they're lessons. And you will fail many times in your life. But it is the recovery and the follow-up attempt to that failure that determines how much you have learned. And I mean, I've failed a lot. I've failed in relationships. I've failed at jobs. I've failed at personal goals. I've failed at all kind of shit. But each and every failure made me better. And with each of these failures, I got stronger. But I realized that through each of these failures, each time they were a mile marker. They were a milestone. You know, not many people consider failures a milestone. I do, because that means I'm making these huge attempts. See, when I fail at something, it's because I made a huge leap. I take big leaps all the time. Duct tape knows me well. I take huge, gigantic leaps because if I look at it like this: if I'm gonna commit a crime, I'm gonna commit the biggest Ocean's 11 level type of crime. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm a criminal. I'm just saying like to get use that as an analogy. So when I set out to make these goals real, my process is seeing everything that leads up to that. So there's things that I've worked at that are really huge that I failed at, but now I've regrouped and I'm going back toward those. But I've learned immensely from those failures. But I realized, as I was saying, that each time that I failed at that, I was able to reflect on how far I've come, because the leap before that was huge, and the leap that got me to that was a chain, a daisy chain of these lily pad jumps they weren't even lily pads, man. They were wormholes. Okay, I was jumping through space and time because that's the type of dude I am. And so, because of these jumps in space and time, these quantum leaps, I was able to see that how far I've come and how far from home I have come. My father was always preparing me to leave. If you black, your parents always prepare you to leave. Your ass gonna get up out of here one day.
Hold it. If you were born in the '70s, yes, that's the problem what we're dealing with now.
No. Kids born in the '80s too. They had that. They still had the parents that was like, your ass gonna get the fuck up out of here real soon. You 10 years old. Your parents like, you getting the fuck up out of here real soon.
Yeah, your homeland has an expiration date. You know what I'm saying? Like
yes.
Literally, when you turn in our day, when you turned 18, literally the locks changed. You would come back from graduation, you dancing all of a sudden. Hey, but you don't work, ma.
No,
I know I love you.
When you hear you think you grown now, when you start hearing that shit, when you start hearing you think you grown, your days are numbered.
Hey, there's a word that we don't use anymore, but when I was a kid, you hear my mom say this: "Oh, nigga, you have to manage now." You think you manage.
Mm-mm.
And manage means crazy. See, so that means, oh, you crazy? Oh, I'm going to show you who's crazier. Mom will beat the shit out of me. I'm like, look, there are certain keywords or certain things that happen in the black community. If you grab the belt while you're getting the whooping, oh, your parents lose their mind. Are you trying to run it high?
Listen. At that moment, you got to follow through. You got to follow through. Like, listen, if you grab that belt, there better be a Samson and Goliath moment following that fucking thing, because, buddy, it is not going well.
See, nigga, my mom went Super Saiyan back in the day. See, I didn't have a word for it back then. Her strength would get, she would get stronger, hair raise up. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Look, the whole thing is that people love to use that word abuse. They love to throw that word around nowadays. And it's not abuse. Your parents train you for life. And my mom told me, I can whoop you or life can whoop you. I'm making you ready for that. So when you walk out there, can't nobody hit you with that. Like I was having problems, in my professional life. And the word that he used now is anxiety. Like, you get nervous, you get upset. You know what my mom would say? He can't whoop you. I'm like, Mom, I'm at work. Yeah, exactly. He can't whoop you at work, and he can't whoop you outside of work. Don't worry about that meeting. Don't worry about going in there. That sounds so fucking crazy to everybody else. No, that's I get it. Like, that person cannot physically touch you. There's no real harm there. This is what I go through with my daughters. Like, one of my daughters, I had her in martial arts. Her mom takes her out, but then all of a sudden she's in high school, and her freshman, sophomore year, she had all kinds of social anxiety and all this other stuff. And I'm talking to her mom. Her anxiety's real. Like, you gave it to her. Why don't you tell her how to deal with it? It didn't come from me. It came from you. So I would sit there and have these conversations and explain to her, you have real threat and you have perceived threat. This is a perceived threat. This is not real. You are safe. This is an environment where they can't do nothing to you.
Right.
And if somebody does and they go too far with this old bullying shit, that's why I had you in martial arts. You kick them in the mouth. You kick somebody in the mouth, they don't talk the same.
Do that Anderson Silva front kick.
And so when you try to explain that everything I've done was to prepare you for this moment, and the biggest thing you can do when you give your kids something is that you tell them something is going to happen a certain way, and when it does, they come back and like, hey, Pop or Dad or Ren or whatever, they come back to you and like, hey, duct tape, it happened just like you said it would. Unfortunately, most of the time when I'm telling these stories, it's something bad. And they're like, but I knew what to do because you told me to do this. Then your children, they cling to that. You got to give your kids something, and people don't want to give them anything anymore. Mm-hmm. Like we see stuff on TV about, hey, I started this business and I expect you to work in the family business. Oh no, Louise, I don't want to work in the family business. Look, having a purpose in life is one of the hardest things there is to find in this world. Is and understanding your purpose and recognizing it. Now, don't get me wrong, you ain't got to do that forever, because hopefully you can pass that on to your kids or another family member, and then you take off in another direction. But the fact is this. It's difficult to have a purpose, and sometimes it's even more hard to understand your purpose. It takes you, like my brother told you, failing, bumping your head, recognizing how you can help other people, recognizing what you learned from this, and people. This episode is about being grown. People don't want to be grown anymore. When me and you were kids, our goal was to be grown. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, everybody's goal is different. Like I told you, like. Every once in a while to get through my kids, I got to tell them a sob story about some shit that happened to me, or like I got this, or I got that, or I'm
because hold on, there's a reason for that. Because if it's not coming genuinely from your experience, then it's lost on deaf ears, because you're telling them about your story, your legacy. And so when they start to hear this, they're hearing something about you that's never happened before. And so they're listening. Then they're like, oh, this motherfucker was doing what? Oh, wow.
Look, hey, my dad tried to beat up my mom, right? It didn't work. I'm like, yeah, he jumped on my mom. She put a gun on him, or she, beat his ass up. It's not what you think. The whole idea of battle is that sometimes everybody thinks that there's a clear-cut victor. Sometimes if somebody, even if they beat you, they will not want to fight you no more, because I'm going to put you through so much shit, even in my loss, that you would think twice about. My mom told me this. Yeah, if you fight hard enough, they'll think twice about fighting you again, whether you win or not. And I'm like, what that means is that my goal has changed. Now, look at an example of that. When Sugar Ray Leonard fought Roberto Duran the first time, Roberto Duran won. So Sugar Ray, like when I fought him the second time, he tells you, my goal was different. And so he goes, next thing you know, Roberto, the man goes, no mas. That's what, if you watch that no mas fight, Sugar Ray went in there to frustrate Duran. He did not battle Duran because he lost the battle the first time. So he changed his technique. Mm-hmm. What makes Sugar Ray special is he would tailor his fights to the person he was fighting. Mm-hmm. See, most people, when you watch UFC now, you see somebody fight and they'll train from one person, and instead of going back to their original fighting style, they keep using that style with everybody else, and not realizing, okay, that style worked with one person. I don't need. Well, Sugar Ray would tailor, after that Roberto Duran fight, he would more tailor his fights to the person he was fighting, mm-hmm. recognizing certain. So with that being said, my mother told me, even if you lose, you can win, because they're not going to want to mess with you no more. It's not worth their expense. It's not worth, like if you headbutt somebody, trust me, they might win, but they ain't going to get headbutted ever again by you. So you got to look at that kind of stuff. And what the other lesson I learned is that fighting is not a bad thing. Being black in America means that you know who Martin Luther King is, but you might not know who Malcolm X is. Now, the reason for that is because they don't want you to fight against your oppressor. But then all of a sudden when we're kids, you get suspended. That's another thing. Back in our day, when we got in a fight, you sat down in the corner and you came back and you had crackers and cookies together. Now you get in a fight, okay, you're suspended for 5 days. That kind of shit.
But there's all this type of like psychological craziness, a cone of silence, and like, yo, what's crazy is the old school approach is that, walk it off, you'll be fine. Walk it off. Unless you're like horribly injured, walk it off, go back to class, you'll be fine. It's not this psychological terrorism they're putting kids through, but there's been a lot of changes since then. But
the reason for that is because you're at school to learn. You can't learn if you're at all these other places. So mm-hmm. There was an objective for you to get back on task, whatever it was.
That's it. And that's a sharp observation. Yes.
Yeah. When we were raised like that, that's how we deal with life. Is that okay? You got COVID? Cool. Get over it. Get back to work. cool. The lights ain't working. Okay, what can you work on? We play checkers. Fuck, we play checkers. You do whatever the fuck you can accomplish in your limitations, and then that still gets you closer to your goal.
But here's the thing, though. So, staying on track. You said staying on track. My father was constantly reminding me that one day, you're gonna take off. Your plane is gonna be on the flight deck of the aircraft carrier, and you're gonna take off. And I'm like, cool, man. Just give me the hand signal, and I'm gone. And the crazy part is that my dad gave me a bike as a kid, and I think I was super young when I had training wheels on. I was like 4 or something like that, and maybe 5. And I'm riding around with these training wheels, and he's looking at me. He's like, "You don't need them damn training wheels no more." So he took the training wheels off, and he just gave me a push. And when he gave me that push, that was it. I was gone. I think I rode down the street. I went past your house, duct tape. Way past, like blocks past, and then I turned around and I came back, and he's like, "Where'd you go?" He's like, "Oh, man, it's fun. I want to keep going." He's like, "Okay, just be careful. Going back out there." And to me,
be home with the street lights. Be home with the street lights.
Exactly. And to me, that was an analogy that this is life. Like, once your parents let you go, you're on your own. And so this is the thing about our childhood, is that we would go on adventures. We would go out. Children today don't go out. They don't go on adventures. They don't go on quote unquote missions like we used to. And we would go explore the city. We would see everything, the bad, the good, prejudice, the love, all that shit. And so what we were seeing was reality. And so we're going out into this reality as pups, as babes, little kids, just going out seeing this stuff and experiencing everything. And it was nothing to see reality, see police, arresting people, or to see, just the earth, and understand, like, your concept of the world. Because in a kid's head, the earth is humongous. But with each,
but it is though. But it is.
But hold on. You're right. But let me finish my point. But the thing is that your experiences and traveling makes it smaller. Now, relatively smaller, right? Relatively small. Yeah, the Earth is huge, blah, 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 blah. Mount Everest, 37,000 feet. Cool. All right, yeah, great. What I'm saying is that...
you can go there, yes.
But you can go there. And then, so these distances, the limitlessness of infinity is not trapped to the sphere of the Earth, within the globe of the Earth. It's like it is when you're a child, because you look up at that sky when it's blue and it just seems endless. And, I would revel in the depth of a blue sky, because I would just, ponder like how big the universe is and how big the world is. And so then I'll go out ride on my bike, or we go out and do some stuff, or we go someplace with your mom, like way on the other side of town. We would be exploring, we'd be seeing all this stuff. And all it did was make me more eager to finally one day grow up and get the fuck on and go have my own adventures all over the world. And
see, okay, the things that unite us are your bike is your first vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about vehicle, you're not just talking about physical transportation. You're talking about mental transportation.
Yeah, you go. Speak on
transformation.
Yes.
And right now, one of the things that's killing us as a society is we don't have these common experiences anymore.
Mm.
Back in the day, like when you go to school, they taught you rules for riding a bike, hand signals, because they knew once you get a hold of this bike, you can go a mile or 3 or 4 miles in a minute or so. It's your vehicle, and so you go farther than if you walk, and you go places, and all of a sudden you look up and you're someplace different, and you are someone different. Then you come back home, but you don't leave that identity there. You bring your identity back with you. So that bike is the first vehicle. The next thing you know, your car is a vehicle, then your aircraft, and then your spaceship. All these are vehicles. And so that what happens in society now, kids don't ride bikes anymore. Kids don't have these adventures, so you don't have these commonalities.
They're stationary. They're sedentary.
Yes. So by that being how they are, social media is their vehicle, and so they have what they believe is look. We had this talk before. I hate rehashing shit, but it's hard not to. Look, how many times have you talked to somebody, hey, what'd you do today? I was on Facebook. Okay, what did you do today? I was on Facebook. Like, nah, motherfucker, what did you do?
What did you do? Do. Emphasis on do.
Like, I got one of my homeboys that makes fun of me. He said, man, you leave the house at 7. I said, I know. I get up and start doing shit. So if I can get it done by 10 o'clock, car batteries. I changed a couple tires. I did some brakes. I did this in 3 hours. So then my rest of the day is mine.
But see,
The rest of my day is
here's the
leisurely.
thing though. You plan your day, and
I
you
don't really plan it.
no no no
I
no
get
no
started
no no no
early.
no no no. Yes you do. You do, but you do it in your head because you know
Yeah,
how long
yeah.
it's going to take you to do certain things, and therefore you don't just fall into one thing to the next. You know that if I go over here, I get in this car and I change the oil, it's going to take me this amount of time because as soon as I finish that oil, I got to be on the other side of town because it's going to be an auction and I got to go buy some new stuff. Or you know that I have a meeting at this time, so I can only fuck with these people for about an hour and 45 minutes because it's going to take me another 15 minutes to get to that meeting, and then I'm going to be talking with these motherfuckers I really don't want to talk to for about 3 hours. So therefore, it's like I only have so much time in the day. You know by now because you're grown, because you've come through all these gates, all these trials, all these lessons that have taught you. Okay, this is how I manage my time, and this is how I conduct myself in a room full of people when I'm speaking publicly, when I'm speaking to a room full of people, I have to engage them in this manner to keep their attention and speak with certain diction so that they take me serious. So you
Look,
hold on, wait, wait,
you
wait, 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 wait,
experience,
hold on,
man.
hold on.
It's all
So
experience.
right, but it's experience. But here's the thing: is that you didn't just arrive at this though. You actually
Mhm.
aspired to do this. You actually wanted and yearned to be a better version of yourself because you knew that as a child you were at the beginning of something. You were accumulating this power, this personal power. And that personal power, we all have it, but we accumulate it and then sometimes we get weak and we give it away. But if you store it and you use it, you get more personal power. And I'm not talking about power that like corrupts and power you can like abuse or to use against people. No, 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 no. I'm talking about this gray matter, this dark matter that is your animus, that is part of your soul, okay? And that
Individual intelligence, as you
it
recognize
is
things
your
and become
spark.
relevant.
It's your spark. It's the thing that draws people to you. And so when you start to accumulate this personal power and you use this personal power is what you're going to take to with you beyond the realm of the living because this personal power is part of the vehicle that is in your soul engine, your spirit body that allows you to traverse the astral plane and make it you're all the way back to Zion. But here's the thing though. This personal power is what you accumulate through all these experiences. But if you do not allow yourself to grow, you don't allow yourself to fail, if you don't take the chances, gamble and gamble with opportunity or gamble with, a chance at, improving yourself, taking risks. That's a big thing. You have to take risks. People are so afraid to take risks now. They're so risk averse that it makes them weak. They're not. You got to have a certain amount of ambition, a certain amount of moxie, because that that fucking ball sack, okay, those nuts. You got to have some nuts. Having balls is what actually gets shit done.
What you're saying is all you care about is the outcome, and you only expect a good outcome. Look, when you get in a fight, you can get hurt, but there's a thing that your goal is to win at whatever
At all costs.
is winning. Yeah, I don't want to use win at all costs. That's what white people say. Your goal is to win. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
no, no, no.
The
See,
fact
see.
is,
The reason why I say all costs is because I got some fucking dirty fucking tools in the fucking tool bag, and I'm gonna fucking reach for them bitches.
yeah,
If the ship is going down, nah, man, I'm gonna plug them holes, and we gonna win
yeah.
this fight.
There's levels to this shit. Like,
Oh
okay,
no,
what
I
I'm
can do
gonna
some
pull out.
dirty shit to people. Dirty.
And so the issue is that I expect to get hurt in a fight. I expect to come away with some injuries, but I know that in the end I will win. I know that my final goal is I'm going to achieve my goal, and I might lick my wounds, but I'll be victorious. And that's another thing that I've always said: success is a moving target. What worked for you in the past may not work for you in the future. Also, sometimes you got to recognize, okay, I'm failing, or I don't have the tools I need. Let me change my goal real quick, finish, get this goal, and move to the next goal. And people don't recognize success moves. Success is not sitting where you left it. What you did in high school, you can learn from, but that still should be what you're doing 30 years later. And like I said, you always use the analogy that what your dad said to you. Because I'm like, people don't recognize that being you when you're grown and you see another grown person, you recognize them as, hey, whatever decision they make, I respect their decision. Whatever they do, because they're grown, I know that they'll accept the consequence of their actions. So it's like once you pass through that sisterhood or that brotherhood, that fraternity, whatever you want to call it, of grownness, other people recognize you. Oh, you grown now? Shit. Like, I had a nephew, and he was always talking about going on vacation, and I'm like, but you ain't got no job. How the fuck you go on vacation? Vacation is a break from what you're going through. And so when people, I dated a stripper one time, and she was like, man, I can't wait till the weekend. I was like, why? You ain't got no job. Every day's a weekend. People, when you see somebody who has been through it, you recognize their scars and you respect them because they've been through some shit, and you can see, like, okay, you can see in their eyes, they got a story to tell, and that's why this whole nowadays. People love to give you their sob story. Back in our day, nobody wanted to give you the sob story. Whatever I've been through is mine, and I decide who's ready to hear it. Nowadays, I gave an example. Like one time I was in class, and I told you, the white girl was talking about her dad's an alcoholic, and started crying, telling the story. And I'm like, why are you crying? Like, her dad's an alcoholic. So is mine. Her dad beat her mom. My dad tried. He didn't win.
Mm.
So you sit there, and like I said, when we came up, whatever you went through was private and it was yours. Now, what you went through is everybody's, and it's the world's, and you tell the world so they'll back off and they'll give you a little leeway. Like, okay, you know what? Her dad beat her mom, so she's went through some shit. She's seen some shit. In the hood, everybody's seen that shit. Everybody saw domestic violence. Everybody saw. I remember the one time that dude with the white guy with the big red afro was running through your yard. The cops caught his ass.
Yeah.
You remember that shit? Like,
yeah.
He had like sunglasses. He had a red afro. And he had to be, I don't know if he was mixed or what, but dude was running.
No, he was a white dude. He was fully white because a crazy part was the synchronicity of the situation was so bizarre. I was watching Cops, and I thought, I was like, I heard all this, like, get the fuck down, I was like, this is the most realistic episode ever. And my room,
surround sound is amazing.
Yeah, in my room, it was like they were like wrestling this motherfucker right outside my bedroom window in my backyard. So I look and I see these cops tussling with this white dude, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I go, instead of like walking to the back porch, I go to the front porch because they're bringing them around from the backyard now. And I'll walk outside and I see this dude getting dragged out of my backyard, and I'm like, there you go. And I said to myself, I was like, not gonna be me. I was like, not gonna be me.
You ain't looking at my clothes for nobody.
But hold on, man. Hold on. I want to speak to something real quick because you hit on something earlier. You said at some point older people look at you, they've been looking at you your whole life, and they see that, oh, you're grown now. And it's a recognition of your maturity. But that also speaks to your reputation. And as you grow, you develop a reputation. And so we were taught by our parents to be civil people. And so our reputation, for anybody that knows us, is that we're not shitheads, we're not thieves, we're not assholes. And the reason why we're like that partially is because we grew up around assholes, shitheads, and thieves. And so your reputation as an adult, it will begin to precede you. And it arrives at handshakes that you have with men and women that you do business with. And they'll say, oh, I've heard good things about you. And most of the time that person is probably telling you the truth unless they're bullshitting you, because you have developed a reputation or a rapport where people know that they can call you. People know that you're mature. People know that you're dependable. And in business, all of those are hallmarks of a good business person. So in maturity, in fully growing up, you work to cultivate these things. And it's very important that you seize upon every opportunity to improve on each of those attributes, because it creates It creates a shadow of you that will loom larger than you are, that will be in the room when people are speaking about you when you are not around. You see,
It precedes you, like you said. They know who you are just by saying your name, or sometimes they won't say your name. They're afraid to say it. But yes, when you cast a long shadow, people respect it.
and especially like if you want to be successful in business, you want to be known by somebody that's effective, that is decent and civil. Because listen, when people talk about famous people that are just these skullduggery, cutthroat pirate type motherfuckers, that's a shitty reputation. It's like, oh, don't mess with him. I mean, listen, everybody knows that one person is like, don't lend that person money, or do not do business with this guy, or this guy, he snitched on somebody and got them locked up. Don't buy no weed from him. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't buy a car from that guy because he's always selling people shitty cars. Like there'd be a car dealership. There were plenty of car dealerships I knew about when I was a kid. Sonny Gerber, don't buy a car from this guy because he sells lemons. See, so that goes to speak to your reputation and your behavior. Is this motherfucker a liar? Is he a cheat? Is he a thief? Is he all of these? These are things that create this shadow of you.
The thing is, in our community, a lot of times what's really frustrating is that when it comes to business, people look forward to the dumbest stuff. Like, I've tried to sell somebody a car before. Like, hey, look, it's yours. You ain't got no car payment. But then somebody want to get a car with a payment and be bragging about it. Like, hey, I only pay $500 a month. I'm like, you're bragging about a car payment.
Yeah, no. You're bragging about being in debt.
Slavery.
About economical slavery. Like you have Stockholm syndrome so bad you don't even realize it.
And so I'm like, okay, but what about the insurance? What about the plates? So you're paying $800 a month. But look, that's not here nor there. What it is that people love to have that revisionist history, as we talk about. They try to change. The truth of the matter is, you still have to work smart. I always backed off the word working hard because that actually gets people in trouble sometimes. You work too hard, and you think that you work hard. You got to work smart too. You got to recognize goals, multitask, set some things up for the future, invest, and things like that. That's being grown, knowing that there's a tomorrow.
But you know what else? Is being grown? Freedom. Well-earned freedom. Now, here's the thing. Freedom, you've earned it because you have worked toward this. You have accumulated assets. And I'm not talking about you got a computer. Yeah. You got an iPhone. You got some nice lashes on your face because you're a chick. No. I'm talking about real assets. I'm talking about you invested in things that are tangible, that are vehicles. Again, a vehicle like that, going back to the bike analogy. You have a new vehicle to take you places and experience things. When I go to different places around the world and I'm standing at some breathtaking view overlooking a mountainside or a cliff or an ocean or a beautiful vista in the desert, I realize that I have worked my ass off to get here, but I'm still that little boy inside. Sometimes when I go out to the desert, I think about giant robots fighting in the desert, Transformers. I think about shit like that because that child inside me is still there to, like Jesus said, you have to have the heart of a child to enter heaven. But it allows me to appreciate the natural beauty of God's splendor. But so hold up, but I bring this up. But I bring this up to say that I earned that. I fought to be there. I fought to be that free to get that. I knew as a child I had to ask my parents for all kind of shit until my father was like, you got to get your ass a job and you got to work if you want some Jordans, or if you want a waterbed or you want a VCR, you got to go and earn that shit. And I did. And when I started working at the age of 10, I began to see things. I learned a sense of community. I learned responsibility, that people expect me to deliver them damn papers. So, and then, you these actions start developing or informing your language of maturity. And so you're developing these things and you're accumulating these experiences. And what started to happen is that I started to buy stuff, right? So then I didn't have to be in a room with my brother, or my sisters. So I had my own room. And in that room, I started putting stuff in there that I worked for. But I knew I was like, okay, this is going to expand into my own place one day. This is going to expand into me getting on planes and going to other countries where people don't look like me and don't speak my languages, but I can go there and enjoy that. These are things that you work towards, but I knew that I wasn't there yet, and I knew I would grow into that. But that freedom is something that I yearn for. I didn't want to stay with my parents forever. I didn't want to be under them forever. And that's the problem with kids today is they're so complacent, they're willing to stay there in that nest.
But this is the problem with the internet. The internet makes people think they know things they don't know.
Oh.
You just talk about all these physical experiences. The internet cannot give you a physical experience. Now, with the internet, you can look up some dates and times and, hey, the climate in Belize and stuff like that. Yes. But it's not like going there and feeling tasting the salt water in the air.
Okay. Recently, you went on vacation, all right, and you had your feet in sand and in blue Atlantic water. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, you looked at that shit on the internet plenty of times. But, bruh, tell me the truth. Didn't it feel good to be there and feel that tropical weather? To be down there in PR and like, yo, this is crazy. I'm like in the Caribbean. You know what I'm saying?
You
like,
understand something? I when we were kids and we would learn about other places, that was... I did my first report on Argentina. Dude, I was still trying to go to Argentina. It was like fourth grade. I'm still trying to go to Argentina. But that's the whole thing is that back then when you learned about it, it gave you a desire to go experience. Now, since you can click and look something up and see some pictures, you think you actually know about it. And that's another thing about you. Like when you go to places, you go off the beaten path. You like, fuck it, I'm going to go see some.
Yes.
Me, I'll hang around the cities, go to a couple markets. I'll go to one beach, or I might go swim. I might go diving and fuck around there and died.
But you know what I'm doing? You know what I'm doing? I'm like, I'm going on a mission. I'm going on a fucking mission. Like, bro, I'm like, I get my coordinates, I get my path. I'm like, this is where I'm going. I don't even use GPS. I don't use GPS. I'm like, this is the map. This is where I'm going. All right, we out. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. That's the mission. Like that's the shit that I enjoy doing. Done. You know what I mean? And you get there and it's like, yeah, man. I mean, that's some cool ass shit, dude. Like, I mean, look, man. You know, as a kid, you know,
here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing that you were saying earlier. Like literally, you said like, hey, I'm in the desert. I'm thinking about robots. I remember one time there was a flood. And this area where I goes fishing is all messed up. And I call you like, dude, this would be an excellent site. We could shoot a movie out here. This would be a great set. And that's how we see the world. The world is one big opportunity, whether it's to film something, whether it's to experience something, whether it's just to go fishing. Like, hey, I'm going to go way over there. I'll grab me a backpack and walk 2 or 3 miles to the bend of the river and I see this big-ass sturgeon. I do that shit.
Right.
Because, you know, that's a part of you that, okay, it's worth it. You know, when you get over there and you catch a fish bigger than you ever seen, or you know, that shit's worth it. You know, when you test your tackle, like, hey, I broke a rod, or, you know, you won't believe what I did. That's why you do that shit to have that experience. Even if it failed, even though you didn't get that fish to make it in, you still like, okay, cool. I got away from work. I got away from, you know, I'm still. Here's the whole thing that we keep moving out. You must be a whole person. And what's happening, that's why, you know, we were also joking earlier, like, hey, I don't care if my woman leaves me. I don't care because I was a whole person when I got here. Mm. Nowadays, people are not complete. They're incomplete, wandering around looking for pieces.
Nobody's going to complete you. Nobody's going to complete you.
Like, we use that terminology. That shit sounds good on a card. You complete me. Maybe you give me some pussy. You know what I'm saying? What it is you should be a whole person, but so many of us aren't whole people. So many of us have these unresolved issues. Then we force them on other people. I get it. You had a bad relationship with your parents. Cool. But you still got to pay bills. You still got to take care of your own kids. You still got to take care of your own responsibilities. And so what it is that, you know, that half-ass excuse, like, I'm not saying addiction ain't real, but it drives me crazy when people you would use, but he's an addict. Don't buy it. If you're an addict, don't buy what you're addicted to. That simple. And then people get mad at me for saying that shit. Like, if you don't buy the crack, it won't make you miss work. It won't make you forget about your kids. Don't buy it. And so people get mad at you for saying that shit. What I'm saying is that, look, part of life is having limitations, and sometimes limitations are healthy. We avoid those now because we believe in this world of excess. It's left over from the 80s, and it got worse through the hip-hop generation up until now, where all you hear about are billionaires. He's a billionaire. And that's that. And because somebody's a billionaire does not make him a good person.
But you know what?
Bill Gates is doing.
But you know what though? You know what? You talked about something about, people allowing other people to create your limitations. And
Yes,
as black people, we do that. We do that. Oh, you doing that? Why you want to do that?
that's white. That's
Yeah.
what white folks.
Or not even that's white. Like, man, you crazy? That's a waste of time. And even a white thing is just like, you gonna waste all your money on that? Yes. Clearly, you like to drive in the slowest lane, and I want to be in the fucking HOV lane when it's empty, flying. Yeah, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm gonna do. Now you can park on the curb over there and watch me fly. Don't
You on the shoulder.
Yeah.
I'm getting by.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing, is that even when it comes to your ambitions or your moxie or your goals, letting other people determine that, letting an entire community determine that, weakens you. So you have to be that one that's going to be hard charging and bust through that limit. I mean, listen, man, like, the limits are there for you to bust them, because that's all these people in your history books, in Black History Month, all these people that we salute, they were all limit pushers. They were habitual line steppers.
That's it. They
Habitual.
cross the line every time.
Every
Look,
time.
But that's why the biggest thing we always talk about is discernment. What that means is recognizing, okay, is this a limitation or is this healthy? Is this going to get me closer to my goal, or is this going to distract me from my goal?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to understand that's what discernment is for. We use that term all the time because sometimes them ancestors are telling you some shit like, hey, nigga, stay the fuck away from that bitch. She ain't no good for you. And other times they're like, you know what? You shouldn't do that. I'm gonna do it anyway because I'm gonna be a trendsetter. I'm gonna be Hank Aaron. I'm gonna be, Jesse Owens. I'm gonna be that motherfucker that steps on that line of white supremacy and walk right past it. Y'all can, my dick swinging in the wind. You got to understand that we're all children of history, and we're writing it right now. In this day and age, like I said, with this internet shit and the social media, people are convinced they're doing shit and they're not doing a damn thing. All these people want to be discovered. Hey, I got a podcast. I'm discovered. I got a social presence. Like, okay, but what about the presence in your children's lives? What about the presence in your mother and father's lives? I take care of my parents now. I'm blessed enough to take care of my parents because they took care of me. What about those things? And we love giving words to things that, like, okay, the big thing right now is polygamy. Just because something has a word, just because there's a word for it, doesn't mean it's a thing. I ignore a lot of shit. Just because you say that social media is a shit, I ignore a lot of shit because I'm like, I don't give it credence in my life. I got to still get up and physically do shit.
I have shit to do.
Yes, I'm still planning real trips because I want to do real shit. I still want to go boar hunting. I'm going boar hunting. Don't know when. Don't know what I'm gonna do with the meat once I get it. I'm not gonna eat the shit, but I want to shoot them motherfuckers. I'm like, we can make some dog food out the shit. I don't give a fuck. But there are certain experiences that where you test yourself and you scare yourself, and you're like, you're better for it because it gives me the ability to deal with other fears and other things later on. Like the first time you drive on the interstate, the first time you're driving out of town, and you're like, okay, I didn't die. The truck didn't run me off the road. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like that shit. We all share those experiences, and when you can share that, like, okay, I look at you, you're a master driver now. You exceeded your last checkpoint, like you said. You exceeded that shit. Now the problem is when you fail, sometimes you get a little PTSD. Sometimes you get a little leery. But you got to fight through that just like you fought through it the first time.
You got to shake it off. Just like that fight you had in this first grade or the second grade or third grade. Shake it the fuck off and get back to class.
That's all that matters.
Because, I mean, look, you would get in a fight, and that's the great thing about children is that they would get in a fight, and hours later, they're like, "What? What happened?" Oh, okay, yeah, whatever. Their mind is so busy, so active. They're so concentrated on absorbing new stimuli. They don't get stuck on one thing. And that's actually a wonderful, wonderful thing because as adults,
Amnesia, yes.
we tend to focus on one thing that's detrimental way too much. But this conversation started on the topic of being grown and maturity. And I want to close this out by talking about how nobody should teach you how to shake a hand. There should be no conversation about how to shake a hand because by the time you start shaking the hands of men and the hands of women, your character should be strong enough to present you standing there with your skeleton and your muscles and your blood and all your tissue and look that person in the eye and tell them this is who I am and project confidence. You know what I mean? These things that we take for granted, there are now a generation of people who are completely unaware of how to do this, how to look people in the eyes when you talk to them. That's one of the things that fucking bothers me now is when you talk to people. They don't look you in the eye. Even adults, like grown motherfuckers, like don't look you in the eye. You know, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. I'm like, yo, hey, I'm talking to you.
They don't want to be there. Like, oh man, I'd rather be doing something. Like, look, I get it. I'd rather be something else too, but we must complete this task. And one of the things is communication. And again, I always say this: it's not communication; it's comprehension. If the person can't comprehend what you're giving them, it don't make a difference. You can communicate as effectively as you want, but comprehension is the true goal of anybody who's communicating something. I need you to comprehend where I'm coming from. Now, whatever you do with it or how you perceive it, that's your business. But comprehension is more important than communication.
But that comprehension of your maturity is a level of awareness. And one would think this will be cultivated through one's life all the way up until, adulthood or the age of 21 or 25 or any of these things. But see, a lot of people, some people, they didn't experience the real world until they went to college. But I was experiencing the real world. You were experiencing the real world as a child. We were experiencing all these things very young, man. So when you start to get around these people that are still wet behind the ears, but they got a full bank account, you're like, how are you? How is this possible? How are you this person, man? And like, how is it that like a pack of wolves have not eaten you alive already? This is blowing my mind.
Hey, here's the deal. I know we better wrap it up, so I got one more thing to throw out there. One of the things that, as a person of color, I was talking to my protege, and she was telling me some things, and I'm like, look, check this out. How old were you when you realized you were black? when did you come to when did you come to the realization? And she said, college. That's when that's my first like racially based experience. I said, see, I was
like tiny. I was a tiny person.
Exactly.
I was a tiny human.
Hold it. Never mind your dad telling you he was a nigga when you was born. No, not that. I'm talking about what happened to you when you were. First time I realized I was black, I was literally 4 years old.
Yes, super small.
Literally, I was. Here's a terrible example. It's St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to a Montessori school. I was at a Montessori school. I'm 4 years old, and I walk in, and imagine being black. I didn't know what St. Patrick's Day was. I didn't have no green on. My mom addressed me, so my mama didn't put no green on me. I didn't have no green on. So all these motherfuckers was pinching me. But I was also told if somebody puts their hands on you, you would hit them.
So you fighting everybody.
No, I fought one person. I knocked his tooth out. I was a kid, and I broke his tooth. And he ran to the teacher. He broke my tooth. So I started crying. He pinched me. She's like, don't worry. So she gave me a big-ass paper shamrock. Now you got green on. They won't touch you no more. But that motherfucker still sucking soup through a straw. You understand? Because I learned early, like, okay, this is a holiday. My people don't celebrate, but everybody does, and they pinch you. They got holidays where they pinch people. What the fuck is that about? So my next experience, you actually remember these black experiences, and I'm not black as in bleak. They're just black as in. I remember my babysitter had told me her husband used to work in the middle of Nebraska, and she had told me one time a little girl ran up to him and put her finger on his skin to see if it wiped off. And I'm laughing about that because I'm a kid, but I'm like 12 years old. I remember being at Target on Saddle Creek, and some little white girl followed me to the store, and she does that. So her first like true black experience wasn't until she was in college. So she's still, even though she's 30-something years old, it's still mine was when I was explaining to her. I said, "Look, I've had a lot more time to get over mine. mine when shit happens to you as a child, you get over it. But when shit happens to you as an adult, you don't always get over it. And that's a terrible way to look at things. I'm sorry, but that's what you were just saying. Like as a kid, you can get in a fight with somebody and y'all be cool 20 minutes later. But as an adult, when shit hits you as an adult, sometimes that actually stays in your makeup in a negative way. And I'm not dissing nobody. I'm not calling, her a snowflake, which I did call her a snowflake. But what I'm saying is that you must understand that, these experiences that shape us sometimes stay with us longer than they should. Sometimes they have a hangover. Sometimes they do. But like I said, you as an adult, you respect another adult when you see one. Hey, man, you've been through some shit. Hey, shit. You bumped your head, huh, girl? Like, you respect that. And all I'm trying to tell you is that, I discovered my identity or my ethnicity very early on. And that's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just, that's also part of my identity. Being grown is my identity. Being an immature bitch is somebody else's. That's all. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So, in arriving at adulthood and arriving in maturity, it's a process. There's not one thing that happens to you and all of a sudden you're just grown. No, it's a process. No matter what you tell me, there isn't one thing. There isn't just like, all right, I'm grown now. No, because there was stuff that prepared you, that molded your psyche, that molded your emotions to get you ready for what you're about to face. Every human being is like
base. I think whenever you watch these TV shows, remember it'd be second base. They would grab a titty, and all of a sudden you're coming of age. You're a man now because you grabbed a boob. Mm-hmm. No, it's not. People try, we try to unite these experiences, like riding the bike and these kind of things, but we don't have common experiences anymore.
Well, and earlier when I said, Mom, it was the passing of my mother that caused the crystallization of my maturity.
Of all of it.
I was already an adult. I was already mature. But it was her passing that sealed the doorway between my arrival on Earth and the rest of my life and my journey towards death. And so, because of that, there were things that led me to that point. It wasn't just one thing. And so, everybody else is the same way. There's always a series of events that brings you to maturity. But the great thing about that is that once you have joined the invisible college of adulthood, you can share your experiences with other people. So there's fellowship in that. There's fellowship in maturity. I mean, you can laugh at motherfuckers who don't have their shit together or who are immature or fucking clowns. You can break bread and talk about your experiences, but all these things together allow us to reflect on the lives that we have lived and the things that we plan to do in the life ahead. And so in closing, I say that be proud of your accomplishments. Do not live in regret. And there's still plenty more to do. We out. Peace.
Holla back.